Hello everyone, I'm Vince Daniels and I am thrilled to bring you a 10-part music-intensive show coming to YouTube starting on October 23rd called The Music of KYMS. It's hard to believe it's been nearly 20 years since KYMS left the Southern California FM radio airwaves for good. Not long after they sold and changed their call letters, one day I found myself in a thrift store not far from the station, and look at what I found. Thousands of records just like this all over the floor. And they all had these little labels on them that said, "This album is the property of KYMS Radio." The store owner made me an offer at pennies per album. And that day, 20 years of KYMS music became my property. Included were printouts of playlists telling the DJs to play particular songs in a certain order, so I hauled all these records over to a studio, and the result is part one of a trilogy covering the 2-decade history of the station, and part one alone will span the years beginning at the beginning in 1975 up through 1981. So what we're bringing you is over 11 and a half hours of this very special time.
We realized that something like this was perfect for a streaming radio platform. And we all agreed that while it still needs to be about the music, which is 95% of our focus, the history is pretty significant. So Vince brought in our host, Jeff Davis, who is a legend in Los Angeles radio.
So the premise of this story is that Jeff walks into this radio station that's been abandoned for almost 20 years. He dusts off all the equipment and the record jackets, and he gets a chance to fulfill this dream he's had. Now keep in mind that this is a guy whose voice is all over the place. He's a voiceover superstar and worked on God knows how many stations as an air personality. And yet, in this story, his biggest lament is that he was never part of the KYMS air staff. His brother Lee Davis was there in their latter years, but not Jeff, until now.
This thing was really ahead of its time for 1974. It's Jeremiah here on KYMS, the gift of 106. I'll have another from Whitehorse as we move along in the hours ahead. My name is Jeff Davis, and I'm having fun sitting here in the shadows of this once great radio station. I just ran across some interesting history locked away in one of the file cabinets, some personal notes from KYMS general manager, and according to Arnie McClatchy, quote, "The Lord gave me the format in 20 minutes in the production room at KEZY," end quote. And actually, the sound of the station was a software program, and the music was blended by an IBM 360 computer that was as big as his office. It would print out 2 weeks' worth of music, much to the chagrin of the jocks who wanted to pick the music themselves. But after a while, realizing that it made their jobs easier, they got used to it.
In March of '75, KYMS became the first major market Christian rock station in America. When they signed on in '69, they were playing acid rock. And by the early '70s, Orange County was now the birthplace of this new Jesus movement. A whole new group of Christian artists were cropping up that simply couldn't sell records to the mainstream public. Then, this station that once played acid rock takes a huge gamble and flips its format, and literally overnight not only reflected the trends of a time, but changed radio history as well.
You know, I have to say that Vince has the right idea, taking a time machine approach to this. What really stands out is that you feel like you're back in the mid-70s to early 80s again, especially when you hear all the bumpers and jingles, and the words of wisdom from KYMS architect Arnie McClatchy.
I want the people to know that he saved my soul, but I still like to listen to the radio. They say rock and roll is...
You might recognize this Larry Norman song playing in the background. He was my favorite, and people like him really spearheaded this whole genre of music, and that's what you're going to find right here.
Think of the music of KYMS as having your radio on in the background. The whole presentation displays all the retro radios of the time. And if you happen to hear a song that maybe you forgot about, you can always walk over to your monitor and check out the title and artist on your screen.
Think about it. Who would have thought in a million years that religious music could come close to sounding mainstream and yet have its own identity? And really, there's a story here and a purity about the time and the music. This might be the most significant format change in the history of radio. I think you'll like what we've put together for you. Like Arnie McClatchy used to say, share the gift of 106. Call a friend now.